Welcome to episode 14 of Token Launch Masterclass. Today we're tackling the Launchpad Gauntlet, a guide to getting accepted. Let's be blunt. Most projects that apply to a top-tier launchpad get rejected. It's a brutal process, and frankly it should be. I've seen teams with brilliant ideas get shut down instantly because they didn't understand the game they were playing. They thought a good white paper and some Twitter followers were enough. It's not. Not even close. Over the next hour, we're going to demystify this entire process. I'm going to walk you through what separates the projects that raise millions from the ones that end up in the no pile. This is your comprehensive guide to preparing for and conquering the Launchpad application. All right, before we even think about hitting that submit button, let's do a gear check to see if you're truly Launchpad ready. First up, when I review one, I'm not just looking for technical specs. I need a compelling story that clearly defines the problem and your unique solution. Next, you need to prove you can build. An idea is great, but what I need to see is a working MVP or a functional prototype. It shows you're serious. Then there's tokenomics. I've seen brilliant projects get rejected for a poorly designed model. You might find it works better to build a sustainable model that shows long-term value, not just a plan for a launch day pump. And finally, the big one, the legal opinion. This isn't optional anymore. It's a critical piece of armor that tells a launchpad you've done your homework and de-risked the project. Nail these 4 pillars and you're on the right path. Okay, so you've built a solid foundation. Now let's talk about building the crowd. Because launchpads don't just invest in a project, they invest in its momentum. When I'm evaluating a project, the first thing I do is dive into their community channels on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. And I'm not looking at your follower count. That's a vanity metric. What I'm really looking for is the vibe. Are people asking intelligent questions? Are the founders actively engaging? Is there a genuine buzz, or is it just bots spamming rocket emojis? You might find it works better to foster a smaller, dedicated community of true believers than to chase a huge, silent audience. And then there's the ultimate social proof: endorsements. Having a few strategic partnerships or a well-respected advisor on board speaks volumes. It shows that other smart people have looked under the hood and believe in what you're building. That's a powerful signal you can't fake. All right, you've got your community buzzing and your project is solid. So, where do you go? This is where the real strategy begins, because applying to the wrong launchpad is a guaranteed way to waste your time and momentum. What I do first is map out the landscape. You have your tier 1s, the household names with massive reach, but also brutal competition. Then you have tier 2s and niche launchpads. You might find that if you're a GameFi project, a dedicated gaming launchpad will understand your vision far better than a DeFi-focused giant. I recommend you go deep on their history. Look at their last 10 launches. What was their average return? More importantly, what does their community value? Is it aligned with your project's ethos? The goal isn't just to get listed on the biggest platform. It's to find the right partner who will truly champion your project. So you've chosen your target. Now comes the moment of truth, the application. This is your one shot to make a first impression. What I look for right away is a crystal clear elevator pitch. Can you explain what you do and why it matters in 2 sentences? If you can't, I'm already losing interest. Next, I want to see a go-to-market strategy that isn't just wishful thinking. You might find it works better to show me the data, the user acquisition models, and the specific KPIs you're tracking. Now for the mistakes I see all the time. Typos. It sounds small, but it screams a lack of attention to detail. Same for generic copy-pasted answers. If you want to stand out, you might consider embedding a short, personal video pitch from the founders. It's a simple move that humanizes your project and shows you're willing to go the extra mile. It tells me you're serious. Now, let's talk about what might be the single most important slide in your deck, the team. Your tech can be groundbreaking, but investors bet on people. The first thing I look for is a transparent, fully doxed team. Anonymity is a major red flag for any serious launchpad. I want to see LinkedIn profiles and a history that connects directly to the problem you're solving. You might find that it works better to showcase a balanced team, not just a group of brilliant coders. What I like to see is a mix of skills: the technical wizard, the marketing powerhouse, and the operations expert. And a quick word on advisors. Having a big name on your site is one thing, but an actively involved advisor who adds real value? That's credibility you can't buy. This is the who behind your what, and it's non-negotiable. So, your application is in. This is where the real test begins. What happens next is a full due diligence deep dive, and believe me, we look at everything. The first thing I do is check for a third-party smart contract audit. If you don't have one from a reputable firm, that's a major red flag right there. Next, I'm putting your tokenomics under a microscope, stress testing it for sustainability and fairness. I'm also confirming your legal framework and, yes, running background checks on the core team. You might find it works better to be completely transparent here. An unrealistic vesting schedule, questionable token allocations, or any hint of a hidden wallet will get you disqualified on the spot. This isn't about being difficult. It's about protecting investors. All right, you've passed the paper test, and now you're in the room for the live pitch. The pressure is on. When I'm on the other side of that table, I'm going to push you on the hard questions. If I ask about competition, what I'm looking for is someone who doesn't dismiss it. I want to see that you respect your rivals, but know precisely why you're going to win. When it comes to token utility, you might find it works better to articulate the clear, tangible value, not just vague concepts like governance. And with financials, what I like to see are realistic projections, grounded in actual market data. But honestly, beyond all the numbers, I'm looking for something else. I'm looking for that unshakable passion, that absolute belief in your vision. Your knowledge got you the meeting, but your conviction is what will get you the deal. Congratulations. You got the yes. That email is a huge milestone, but don't pop the champagne just yet. This is where the real work begins, the negotiation. The offer sheet is just the starting point. First, let's talk valuation. What I like to see is a number that's ambitious but defensible, not plucked from thin air. Then we get into the details of the token allocation. You might find it works better to have a clear, fair vesting schedule for your team and early investors. Anything less than a one-year cliff for the team is a major red flag for me. It signals a short-term mindset. Next, let's break down the Launchpad's fees. What I do is get absolute clarity on their take. Is it a percentage of the raise, a flat fee in tokens, or both? The goal here isn't to win every point. It's to build a fair partnership that benefits your project, the Launchpad, and its community. All right, let's make this real. Theory is one thing, but seeing it in action is another. A great example I saw recently was a project called Project Horizon. When I first looked at their application, what stood out wasn't a massive Twitter following. Instead, what I saw was a super engaged Discord community where the founders were answering tough questions every single day. That's the momentum we talked about. Their application was flawless, a crisp two-sentence pitch, and they included that personal video I mentioned earlier. It immediately built a connection. The team? Fully doxed, with a lead developer who'd shipped successful products before. When it came to negotiations, they didn't just accept the first offer. You might find it works better to come prepared, like they did, with a defensible valuation and a fair vesting schedule already mapped out. They didn't just get accepted, they secured a true partnership because they nailed every step we've covered. Now, let's spend a minute on the projects that don't make it. Learning from failure is crucial. When I have to reject a promising project, it almost always comes down to one of a few key pitfalls. The biggest one I see is weak token utility. If the only purpose of your token is governance, that's a red flag for me. You might find it works better to build in clear, tangible value. Another instant no is an unbalanced team, all tech wizards with no marketing muscle, or vice versa. What I like to see is a complete package. Then there's the obvious, insufficient community traction. 1,000 bots in a Telegram channel mean nothing. And finally, the unforced error, applying to the wrong launchpad. If you're a deep DeFi protocol applying to a gaming platform, you haven't done your homework. Think of this as your final checklist of what not to do. So, as we wrap up this journey, what's the one thing that separates success from failure in the Launchpad Gauntlet? You might find it works better to think of it not as a single application, but as a campaign of meticulous preparation. It's about building that unshakable foundation, your MVP, your tokenomics, your legal framework. It's about fostering a real community, not just chasing numbers. What I like to see is that relentless attention to detail, from the launchpad you choose to the polish on your final pitch. That's what gets you through. Now, bypassing these gatekeepers is a tempting idea, which brings us to our next topic. Join us for episode 15, Fair Launch or Flawed Fantasy, the pros and cons of LBP, where we explore if liquidity bootstrapping pools are the future of token issuance.
If you find this information useful, we would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe this channel to help others find us. If there are subjects you would like covered, please add in the comments section and we will include it in future episodes.